Hello, Virgo. I need you to sit with the title of this one for just a moment before we go anywhere, because I suspect that somewhere in you, in whatever room you keep the things you have, stopped letting yourself think about a name just moved. Maybe it moved quietly. Maybe it moved like something that has been very still for a very long time and shifted only slightly, just enough to remind you it was there. That name, that person, the one you filed under, finished, underdone. Under the category we all maintain of things we have accepted will not come back. What I have to tell you today is that the filing may have been premature. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And if a face is already appearing behind your eyes right now, subscribe, stay here, because Virgo goes exactly into the places most people refuse to look. Um, so let's go. The particular silence of a closed chapter. It is different from other silences, heavier, more resolved. It has edges to it, clear, defined edges, and when you press against them, you feel the finality of them, the specific solidity of something that has been genuinely concluded rather than merely paused. Or so you believed. Because here is the thing about chapters you have declared closed: the declaring is yours. The closing, the actual physical, atmospheric closing of something between two people, that is never entirely yours alone. It requires both parties. And what one person files as finished, another person may still be carrying as unfinished, may still be turning over in the small hours, may still be approaching and retreating from in the private repetition of someone who has not yet made their peace with the ending you already accepted on behalf of both of you. Somewhere in some version of their ordinary day, that person is composing something, not necessarily in words yet. Sometimes it starts as a feeling, the specific feeling of something unresolved, pressing upward against the managed surface of a life that has tried to continue without it. Sometimes it starts as an impulse, the hand reaching for the phone before the mind has authorized the reaching. Sometimes it starts as a dream or the residue of a dream, the emotional weather of a sleep that put you somewhere in the center of it and left the person waking with the particular vertigo of someone who has just been reminded of what they tried to forget. However it started, it has been building and building and building toward a moment of delivery that may be closer than the distance between you would suggest. Let's talk about what it takes to reach back towards someone you let go of, or were let go by, or drifted from, in the particular way that some separations happen, not with a clean break, but with a long, slow fade that left no single moment you could point to and say, there, that was when it ended. It takes the dismantling of a story, because every person who has been absent from your life for long enough exists inside the mind of the person who misses them as a story, a fixed narrative, a version of events with a beginning, a middle, and an ending that has been told and retold internally, privately, in the dark, until the edges of it have worn smooth with repetition, until the story feels like history rather than interpretation, like fact rather than the version of events that was assembled by a particular person in a particular emotional state at a particular moment that has since passed. Reaching back means admitting the story was incomplete, means acknowledging that the ending that felt so resolved, so final, so neatly concluded was a story told from inside a pain that may have colored it. That the chapter declared finished may have been declared finished before all the pages were written. That admission costs something. It costs the security of the closed chapter, the particular relief of having decided, the protection of the resolved ending, which, however painful, at least had the mercy of being over. To give that up, to open the story back up, is an act of considerable courage or considerable hunger, or both. They usually arrive together. There is a specific species of thought that belongs to this, the thought that arrives at the wrong time, not in the meditative space where you have given yourself permission to sit with difficult things, but in the middle of something else entirely, in the middle of a conversation about something mundane, in the middle of a task, in the sudden unprepared exposure of a moment when your attention slipped its leash for just a second and went somewhere it has been told firmly and repeatedly not to go. Your name arrived in one of those moments. Not invited, not welcomed, exactly, though not entirely unwelcome either, which is its own complicated thing to sit with, but present, vivid, carrying more of the original charge than the passage of time was supposed to have diminished, the way certain smells carry entire years with them, the way a specific song can return you in an instant to a version of yourself you thought had been fully outgrown. Something about you arrived in them with that quality. And the arriving was enough to break something open that had been held carefully closed. Not everything, not the whole of the closed chapter at once, but a crack, a line of light, enough for the question they have been refusing to let themselves fully form to slip through. What if the ending was not the ending? Here is where it gets complicated. And I want to stay in the complication rather than smooth it over, because you deserve the honest version of this. The person reaching back toward you is not the same person who was there before, however much you might recognize them. However much the familiarity of them, their voice, their particular way of phrasing things, the specific quality of their attention when it is aimed at you might make time seem to collapse. The years between then and now have done their work on them, have changed things, deposited new layers over the old ones, left marks, and you are not the same person either. This is the thing that people who reach backward across significant silences most often fail to fully account for. They are reaching toward a memory, toward the version of you that existed in the chapter they are trying to reopen. And the message they are composing, however genuine, however long carried, however costly in terms of the story it required them to dismantle, is addressed in some sense to someone who no longer exists in quite the same form. The you who receives it will be different from the you they are reaching for. This is not a problem. It is simply the truth of what it means to reconnect across time rather than across space. The task, when the message arrives, will be to let them meet who you actually are now, not to slip back into the shape of who you were then, which can feel so natural, so immediately available that it happens without decision, without awareness that a decision was even on the table. The message itself, what will it look like? How will it arrive? Probably not the way you would have written it in the imagined version. You may have allowed yourself briefly and then forbidden yourself to return to. Probably not the grand, fully articulated, everything acknowledged declaration that the weight of the silence between you might seem to demand. The gap between what this reaching back costs them internally and what it produces externally is almost always striking. You receive something small, something that looks on its surface almost casual. A hey, a question, a reference to something shared that creates a thread of continuity across the interruption of however long it has been. Something that requires you to respond in order to make sense of, which is its own particular kind of elegant design, whether conscious or not. Something that creates the opening without requiring the person to have crossed fully through it yet. But beneath the small thing carried invisibly, present in the specific choice of what was said and what was not said, and the hour at which it was sent, and the fact that it was sent at all, will be the weight of everything that preceded it, every retreat, every draft that didn't make it, every moment of almost that became a not yet. You will feel that weight the moment it arrives. Not because you are reading into it, because it is genuinely there. What you do next? This is the part where I refuse to give you instructions. Not because there are no wise moves, but because the wise moves depend entirely on things I cannot know from here, on what existed before, on what ended it and how and whether the ending left something that was salvageable or something that was salvaged looking but hollow at the center, on who you are now and what you are building and whether this person, this changed, time marked, courage finally found version of this person fits anywhere in the architecture of the life you have been constructing in their absence. Only you know those things. What I can tell you is this: the reaching back is real. The courage it required is real. The long period of carrying and retreating and finally arriving at the willingness to send the small thing that contains the large thing, all of that is real. What you do with the real thing is entirely, completely, without qualification yours. Not theirs, not the stories, not the weight of the history between you, which will assert its own gravity the moment contact is made and will try, in its subtle way, to make the decision for you by making the familiar feel like the correct. Yours. From the ground of who you are now, from the life you have built, from the version of yourself that exists on this side of everything that happened and everything that came after. One last thing. The person who is reaching back, who is composing, who is building the courage, who is standing at the edge of the message they have been almost sending for longer than either of you might know. They are doing something that most people never do. They are choosing vulnerability over the safety of the closed story. They are choosing the risk of a real response which cannot be controlled, cannot be scripted, cannot be managed back into safety. Once it arrives over the manageable grief of the silence they have been living inside. that is not nothing. Whatever you decide, however you receive what is coming, know that it arrives having cost something real. And let that inform the quality of how you hold it. Even if only for the length of the moment before you decide what to do next.